What's up Flutter aliens, welcome back to another video of Flutter and Firebase Developer Bootcamp's week 5. This is going to be the last video of status feature where we will finally bind all the logic back to the UI to see all the code in action that we have written up until now. And from the next video, we will start working on the call feature, which would be the last feature we will be working with in our WhatsApp clone clean architecture. Anyways, let's get to it. So first thing first, let's add the necessary widgets in the status feature that we will be using with the status feature presentation layer here inside these pages. So let's close up this data layer, and inside that presentation layer we will create one more directory. We'll be name it widgets. Inside that widgets we are going to have two widgets, and that would be the delete status update alert and the other one status dotted borders widget. The delete status update alert is apparent from its name. It's simple. We have buttons, an alert dialog and a show dialog method passing the context from the method, and in the builder we are returning the alert, which is this alert having these actions and delete one status update and the background color passed in here. So once we click the delete, so we will take some action to delete the status from the Cloud Firestore database. So this is simple method of showing delete status update, and this status dotted borders is the code of the borders that would be shown around the status, so that we can specify if that specific story of the status is seen by the user that is the current user logged in our WhatsApp clone application. So there is already a package of this status dotted borders widget, but I prefer to proceed with the custom code rather than relying on the package for this small task. And yes, anyways, this code is not written by me. I just reviewed it and adjusted it according to my project requirements, like passing these arguments and checking the conditions in here based on the status image entity. Here I check the conditions. If it's me, then we will show the gray color, otherwise we will check one more condition. If the images, which means the stories of the specific status viewers, contains the current UID, we will still show the gray color, otherwise the tab color, and the stroke width is 2.5 and the style is stroke. This code is basically the generated code generated by the ChatGPT 4 version, and as I said, you have the idea and you know the code, and the AI models knows the complex calculations and the physics. Hence, you can do whatever you want. This is the power of AI with development. So here in this widget, it's extending the custom painter, which means that whenever we are calling it, we have to wrap this widget with custom paint widget. You will see it in the status page once we get to this. So we are simply passing these parameters in here, and we are doing the painting on the canvas, drawing circles, and it's stroke and whatever it is doing in here. But whatever it is doing, it's just making the status dotted borders for us, so that in here we are not relying on the external packages because of the reasons that I explained in the previous videos. So if you want to understand this code, that custom code generated by the ChatGPT 4 version, you can simply copy that and give it to an AI model. You can give it to Bard or the Gemini model that's generated recently. I also created the video on that. You can watch this, and you can just provide the code to these models and they will explain everything bit by bit to you, that what is happening, that main paint and color conditions and all of that stuff. So this is basically simple code, not a rocket science, drawing circles and painting on the canvas. So to give us the dotted borders around our status so that we can display it like real WhatsApp if a story of a status has been seen or not. So this is basically this task done by the status dotted borders, and we will be using it in our status page. So that was it for these necessary widgets that you will be using in our pages. And now in the status page, we have to first make it the stateful widget, and in here we're gonna have two variables, one of stories and other my stories. So both of these variables will be used to load my story in the status page. But what's the difference between them is the stories will be dealing with the data coming from the database. So we are having the status image entity in that case, so that's why we are doing the list of status image entity. But why we are doing it my stories of story item is that we will also that story with our package Flutter story view, so it requires the item of story item. So that's why we are having two separate variables just for having the my stories loaded in the status page. So that's the difference between these two variables that we'll be using right now. So you will see this in action in a moment when you proceed with the remaining binding logic with the UI. So next thing here we have to do, first import the path package as path. And then to pick the files from the device, we're gonna have the selected media and the selected types and this selected media method. So once this is called, first it will set the state to set the state variables to null, and then it will try to put the data in them by doing a result of await platform.pick files. So we will specify the type of media, which means that we can pick any kind of media from the device, and we will check if the result was not equal to null, which means that we have picked something from the device, and then we are putting the data inside the selected media and the media types. So we are doing the result.files, we are mapping each file so that we got its value platform file, and then from platform file we are specifying it to the file and passing the path from that file that we got and converting it back to the list, so that we got all the files that have been picked from the device. And then we are initializing the media types here, just doing list.field, which creates a list of the given length with the field at each position. So what it is going to do is simply will create the items inside the list and according to the length of the selected media, and will be filled with the empty string since we have specified the list of string. So if we have picked two files, so it will get two empty string values, and then we are looping through the selected media and then doing string extension, accessing the path.extension from the selected media on index, accessing the path, which means that accessing the extension of the file that we have picked. Then we are checking if the extension was JPG, JPEG or PNG. Then on the selected media on the specific index, we will do image only in case if the image is picked. Otherwise, if the extension was equal to the .mp4, .mov or AVI, then on the specific index you will set the type of video. And then we will set the stat and do print media types, and we'll print the media types and else no file selected. And if some error occurs, we will do error while picking file and that error. So why we are doing these things, why we are also taking the media types while picking the files, why they are important in our case. So we need the types. So the package that we will be working with, which is Flutter Story View created by me, requires the type to distinguish between if the video is playing or the image is here to display. So we need to specify if it's image or video. So just for that purpose, we are accessing the extension of the files that we are picking, and then we will be uploading these types also to the Cloud File Store database. You may have seen the status image entity. Here we have the type. So the type will be stored in here that has been retrieved while picking the file, and then whenever we are retrieving the story from the Cloud File Store, so we will have the type, and based on that type we will give it to the Flutter Story View package, and then it will decide if the type was image, simply will display the image as a story, and if it was video, then it will play the video, as simple as that. So that's why we're also accessing the media types from the files that we are picking from our device. So that was the second task in the while binding the logic in the UI in the status page. Then we have to separate the body widget, and then we have to add the builders in here to load the data of the statuses of my status and other user statuses, and then we'll go for creating them so that we will see it after the creation of the statuses. So we will simply cut the scaffold from here, and then we will do body widget, and then it's going to return the scaffold. That's it. Now we will pass the body widget in here, and then we will wrap this body widget with the first single user qubit and then the status qubit, and also get my status qubit. So the build method will become something like this. For a while it may be looking a bit complex, but believe me, it's pretty simple. Let me show you how. We are doing simply wrapping the body widget with a single user qubit, and just to retrieve the current user on the UID, we will be calling the provider methods in the init stat in a while. Just first let's understand this. If the user stat was loaded, simply we will from the loaded stat access the current user, and that's it. Then this is on the root on the top, and if none of the stat was emitted, we are currently doing the single user. I just copied and pasted, and I was doing it for testing. So anyways, I will do it now. The center child circular progress indicator with color tab color, and make it constant and copy it and paste it for this, also for this one. And these two is for the status and the my status, so that if none of the stat is emitted, we will simply display a circular progress indicator, and that's it. So we were here. When the get single user loaded stat is emitted, we will simply access the current user as the single user from the stat, and we are good to go. We will be sending it with the body widget, because here the current user will be required when we go forward with more condition checks in the body widgets below. So we got the current user. Then we have one more block builder of status qubit, just to load the statuses of other users on the status page. Then from the loaded stat, if the condition we are checking, if the stat was status loaded, then we have to simply access the statuses loaded from the streams. Here you can see we are doing sending a request on the get statuses, which return type is stream list of status entity. Then we listen to the stream, which give us the list of status entity, and here when the stat was loaded, we are retrieving the statuses, and then we will be passing it to the body widget, and that's how it's going to work. So we are checking if the stories is empty, which means that we have not yet filled the stories of the current user. Then you have to return the body widget and passing the status and the current user like that. And when the stories was not empty, and if then you have to return one more block builder with get my status qubit, and then if the get my status was loaded, you will be passing the status, current user, and the my status would be the my status coming from the load stat of the get my status loaded. Otherwise, if none of the stat was emitted, we will display the circular progress indicator. Now we are going to go and pass the parameters to the body widget, so the errors will be fixed like that. And then when you go forward, it will become clear to you how this process is working together by passing the data to the body widget and how everything is happening. So these are just the builder methods. We will trigger them in the init stat in a while. First, let's pass the data to the body widget, and it would be these parameters, list of status entity, which would be the statuses of the other users, and then the user entity of the current user to have the current user in the body, and then this will be nullable, which means that the current user stories might not exist at the time if the current user has not uploaded one. So in that case, we will display some different UI based on this. So that's why we pass the question mark in here, which means that it can be null. And then once we have this, we're gonna go ahead, and we don't have one init stat yet, so we'll do init stat override method. This is called when the widget is inserted into the widget tree. Then we have to do some calling the methods, and that would be these three methods. From the block builder status qubit, we are doing the get statuses, and here it would not matter if we don't pass it. I think it's required here. Yes, it's required, so let's keep it like that, because while getting the statuses in the data layer, let's see in the remote source implementation, while getting all the status where is, so it don't require any kind of parameter like UID or something like that, so that's why it's not necessary to pass any kind of something in here. So we could also do just remove the status, but we have to then do it for all the methods. So anyways, let's just keep it like this to save our time. If it's not required, then simply do it with empty, and this would not affect the functionality of this. Anyways, then we are doing get single user qubit and passing the UID. So the UID will be come from the final UID, string UID actually, and then pass it to the constructor and would be required. Then we will come up with an error in the home page, and to here let's pass the UID in here, and the UID will be the widget.uid, which means that the current user UID. Remove the constant, and we will also be required with the UID in here once we move to the call feature. So anyways, in the status page we got the UID. So on that UID it will get the single user, and on that UID again it will get us our status. So that was for building the UI so that we can have the current user, the statuses of the other users, and our if exist. So how this stories is going to be filled, so that if there is stories of ours when we uploaded some, so it will build this qubit and will also give us the my status. So how this is going to happen, here we have to write one more method, and that would be fill my stories list. It's taking the status entity and also checking if the status start stories was not equal to null, then we are passing the data to the stories, and also we are looping through these stories. So we got the status image entity, then we are adding my stories start add in the story item, we are adding the URL of the story, and then type would be the story item type extension from string story.type. That is because the story item requires the type as the story item type, which is itself an enum, and the type we got from the story is a type of string. So we need to convert from string to the type like that, so it will be converted from string to the type that is required for the story item, and that is story item type, and the viewers will be the story.viewers in our Cloudflare store database. So that way we will fill the my stories list, and now we're gonna call it in the init stat this way. We are sending a call on get my status feature use case, which means that it will be called only once whenever the init stat method is called. So it's not the stream method, which means that it won't be called again and again whenever is there new changes. So like the stream is doing the sequence of asynchronous task, but it's not like that. It's future, it's the single asynchronous task. It will only send one request and will receive one response, and then when we receive one response, based on that we are checking if the status is not empty and the stories was not equal to null. Simply pass this my status start first, which means that the status entity, and we will be having only one status, that would be the recent status in the last 24 hours, as I explained in the previous video while implementing the remote add source implementation of the status feature. And this TI has an error, which means that we have to import the main injection container as DI, and from the DI we are doing just having a call to the get my status feature use case, and by specifying its type, and all the work is done in the status injection container for reaching to the actual implementation. So that way we will fill the stories, and the stories will get the data like that, and then based on that we are checking if it's not empty, then you have to pass it to the body widget. So now it's time to populate the body widget, check the conditions where required, and then we will run our application to see the code in action that we have written up until now while binding the logic with the UI. So in the body widget, in the stack that we have in here for this container where nothing is displayed for now, and the current user profile will be displayed in here if he has uploaded one. So we will do image URL by not widget, we already have the current user, dot profile URL like that. And here what we are going to do, we just check the condition if the my status upcoming was not equal to null, which means that there is the stories uploaded by the current user, so that the stories will be filled and the stories has gotten some data, which means that this condition is not true and the else is executed, so which means this my status got the data. So if it was not equal to null, we are doing wrapping the container with the JS director which has same width and height 55 and 55 and the margin is from all side 12.5, and the child, this time we return the status dotted border widgets is me true, which means it's our status. So for that the conditions will be different in the status dotted border, and the number of stories will be the my status stories length and the space length is 4. The images will be the my status start stories and the UID will be the UID of the current user. And that's it. And then it's simple container with margin from all side 3 with height and clip rect with the border radius 30 and passing the status image URL, which means that the first story URL on 0 index. So this will only happen when the my status was not equal to null, otherwise it would return the container with 60 width and height and horizontal and vertical margin and a clip rect of 30 border radius and passing the profile URL only in case if the my status was equal to null. And the either show up bottom sheet is doing that if the my status was not equal to null, so which means that you have to show the bottom sheet of the story so that the story will be progressing and will go along like that, and if it finish it will close up the bottom model sheet itself. And that's the functionality of the Flutter story view, the package that I created. Otherwise if the my status was equal to null, so whenever it's clicked will take us to the device storage. From here we will upload the images or videos that we have in our device. So that is what is happening first in that stack. Then for this plus icon, what we are going to do, we will check again the same condition if my status was not equal to null, which means that we don't have to show the plus icon anymore, so we will do container otherwise that plus icon. And here we have an error, and that is of the either show up bottom sheet. So now we are going to go and implement this. So with that we have to implement the bottom sheet also of the story, so that we will show it up later whenever a story is clicked when uploaded. And then we will come here again to populate this list view builder to display the statuses of the other users also. And after some final touches we'll go ahead for testing, and then we will implement the delete and update functionality like that. So now let's go ahead and implement this method. We will do create method in here and open up the body for this. This is going to check if the my status was not equal to null. I added the question mark in here, which was not added by default when I created this method. And if it was not equal to null, you have to show the image video bottom model sheet, and there it will be calling the Flutter story view from the Flutter story view package, and then we're passing the arguments that we are passing in here, and based on that will give us the story view of image or video. Else if the status was null, then we will call the select media. In the then method we are checking if the selected media was not equal to null or not empty. You have to display the show bottom model sheet and then a scroll control to true, which means that it will take all the space available on the screen is dismissible, and enable drag will be false, so it won't be dismissible like that, but here will be a cancel button which will allow us this functionality. And the context will be the context, and in the builder this time we are returning that method that we talked about when we are dealing with different types of sending messages. So I have added the show multi-image video picked widget that is located in the global widgets, and here image and video. So it's time to explore it. So this is basically a stateful widget taking up the on tab, which means that whenever it's clicked will allow us to upload the images or videos selected to the cloud file store database. This is basically the preview widget, you can say. We are sending the list of files and we will display them as page view, so we will be allowed to swipe like that. That's why we have the page view controller in here. And since we can have multiple videos, so that's why we do map int of future void. So whenever each video is loading in future builder, we will load that video. And since we can select multiple videos for uploading, so for that we also have a map of video controllers. It's obvious if we have multiple videos, it's obvious we will going to have the multiple controllers of that videos. So that's how we have these three variables. In the instat, we are doing all of the initialization, looping the files, and if is video, what is video, checking the condition. If the file path ends with mp4, then we are assuming that if is video. Then if is video, then we are only initializing the video controllers and the video features, otherwise we won't. And then in the build method, we have a container stack page view builder, passing the page view controller, selected files length that we have selected for uploading, and then build item. And these align are the same methods that we had in the image and video separate picked. And then the build item, we are passing the selected files based on index and the index. And in here, what we are doing feature builder and passing the features inits of based on index. And if the connection stat was equal to done, and we are turning the stack with the center aspect ratio of 16:9 of the video, and in the video player we are passing the controller based on index, so that each video got its own index based on the specific index on the page that we are currently viewing it. And in the center we have the pause and play buttons of the video, so that we can play and pause that specific video on that index. Otherwise we will display the circular progress indicator. And in the dispose method, we are looping through all the controllers and disposing them all like that. So this is just a preview widget. Whenever we picked videos or images, media files from our device, so that will be displayed in this show image and video widget. And now in the status image, we will for now comment this out, upload image status. And now we will first focus on implementing the bottom sheet of the story view. So after that we will go for uploading, and then some little population of the list view builder, and then we are good to go. We will go for testing and then the final touches, and we are done with that. So the show status image view bottom model sheet is going to be, so the show status image view bottom model sheet is going to take the status entity and also the list of stories item that is coming from here, while passing it for the status for the story, we are doing my stories. So it will simply display a bottom model sheet with these. I explained that once. And in the builder, it will return the Flutter story view, and then when completes, it will automatically close the bottom model sheet, and the story items will be the stories that we are getting from here, the my stories, and enable on hide, which means that whenever we hold the story, so what is going to happen, the profile and the indicator and all of that stuff will be hidden whenever we hold the story, and then we let it like that, so it will become visible again. So if this is false, so this functionality is not going to happen, and once we make it true, so the functionality will start working. And this is going to be the caption of the story. So in the preview, if you want to add the field in there, so you can also just take the data from the controller and pass it to this caption, so that caption will also be uploaded to the Cloud Firestore database, and you will be able to see it the way you want it to be. So I'm just keeping the caption like this, so you can implement this functionality. It's pretty simple if you want. And when on page change is called, or whenever the pages change, so what we are gonna do is to call the scene status update method, passing the index of the image, which means the story, passing the user ID, and then the status ID, so which means that the status will be updated on that specific story index, and that current user ID will be added for a single story inside the status, and that story in that status will be considered as seen. And the created ad is simple whenever the status was created. So this simply shows image view bottom model sheet. And then we will uncomment this, and this is going to be the method of for uploading these statuses. So this method is going to be something like this, taking the current user and then calling the upload statuses, which is, again, as I explained in the previous video, will create a directory based on the time, and i+1 for uniquely identifying the image in the storage. And after uploading them all, will return us the image URLs. And then once we got the image URLs, then we will loop through each image URL and will add them one by one to the stories. As the status image entity, the URLs will be on index, the media types will be also on index, and the viewers will be empty whenever uploaded. And then we will call the same get my status feature on the UID, and then it will give us my status. We will check if the my status is not empty, which means that the current user status is within the last 24 hours and is not disappeared yet. So we will call the from block provider update only image status. For the status, we are passing the status ID and that specific stories to update, and then we will do push replacement in the context to the home page. So we are basically here not going to the home page, but here we have to add one more field, will be int index, and pass it to the constructor. And in the init stat, I will check the condition. If the index was not equal to null, I will set the stat to the current type index to the index that is coming, and the type controller will be animated to 1, which means that the status page just for updating the UI whenever the status is uploaded or updated. So we will make it nullable and will remove the required from here, so it will be fixed like that. And this is going to require, not required, but will pass the index as 1 also here while navigating to 1. So whenever the user my status was not empty, which means that the current user status is within last 24 hours, so we will update only image status. Otherwise, we will call the create status with a timestamp, passing the stories and the username, UID, profile, and the status image URLs on 0 index. For the image URL, passing the phone number. In the then we will do push replacement with the home page on index 1, which means that will be navigated us back to the status page on index. So once we have this, we have to now populate the UI of the list view builder, and then we will go ahead to run our application and we'll test it. First of all, we will do status start length, which means that the other user statuses and the length of them as item count in the list view builder. And in the item builder, we're gonna do access to the single status from the statuses based on index. Then the list style will be changed to, it will got the on tab, and we'll call the either show or upload sheet, and we'll pass the my status as the single status that we have gotten here, and the current user will be the current user, and the size box of width and height 25, the custom parent Sam, and passing the data to the status dotted borders. This time the isme is false because there won't be the current user data, and Sam container in here with profile URL and Sam container in here, and the image URL will be the status image URL, the username will be the status username, and the created ad whenever that status is created. So once this has been done, it's time to run the application on the iOS simulator, and we will go for testing this out. So when I run the application of WhatsApp clone in the iOS simulator, I got an error of the error running pod install on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and it's a long stack of error, and I think we have to do to cd to the iOS directory and do run the pod update to update the pods, and after that we'll try to run the application on iOS simulator. So it's analyzing the dependencies of the Firebase and now installing some. So when I run pod update in my WhatsApp clone application, so I came up with another exception and the application was still not running. So what I did next thing is I just run a Flutter clean, and once it's complete, I did Flutter pubget to get the dependencies back, and then I run the application and it runs successfully. So like that, sometimes it causes problems because of the dependencies version fails, and something that must be updated does not get updated because of some reason, like the IDE issues. So it happens sometimes, like for no reason the application is not running, so that we have to either invalidate cache, restart the Android Studio or any editor we are using, or we just have to clean the build process and then pub git again to make it work. And it just worked directly when I do clean and git. So anyways, now the application is running. Now let's go to the status page, and when I do so, I got it like this, but also I got an exception I think here, and it's saying the cloud first or failed precondition, the query requires an index. Okay, the query require an index, that might be off. The where UID and the where, these are two queries and used in this also. And here it's saying it's required for get my status feature, and since these both two are same, so it requires creating the index for this one. It's saying click the link here, and when I do so, it will take me to the browser where my WhatsApp clone app is, and directly the pop-up will appear. The status collection requires additional indexing to run your query, like the UID on created and the name, all are ascending and needs creation. So I will save this. So when I do so, it's saying building, and after 3 to 5 minutes it will be completed and the status will become enabled. Then we'll go ahead to test this again, so next time we won't face this exception again. So let's wait for it until it's built. So after it has been completed, you will see a pop-up in here, the query index status has been enabled now, and then you have to go ahead and hot start your application again. And once it hot starts, you can go back to the status page and it won't throw any exception, and we got printed the status and my status is empty since we have not uploaded any status yet. So that's why both are empty. We have printed them in the status page here inside while filling them, I think. No, it's not here. And these prints may be, let's say, Ctrl Shift F to find all the project, and I do status is equal to, and my status, the first one is in my qubit and the other is, okay, these are coming from the qubit. So anyways, let's just keep them like this. So now we can go ahead to upload the status. So here, are we calling the upload image status? Yes, we are. And when the status is uploaded, we are navigating back to the home on index 1, which means that we will still be on the status page, navigating back so that the UI is updated correctly. So when we click the tab on add your favorite status, it will do nothing, and I think we have to call the either show or upload sheet. We have to call it in the here in the stack, the container here, or the add icon. It's simple container when we will wrap it with a gesture detector, and when is tapped, we will call this and we'll pass the data to, let's say, my status and the current user. And then also when we click this area tab to update your status, it's located in here, widget gesture detector, not the recognizer one, but the gesture detector. And when on tap, we will do this same thing and remove the constant from here and put the constant wherever is required. When you do Ctrl S, then open up the run console, and then when you click this tab to add your status, it will call the method, and this time the my status was equal to null, so it opens up the gallery. So I have a lot of teased images because recently I work in a dental application, so I had to download the images like that. Kind of look weird, but anyways, we can select any image. For example, let's say this one, and let's add. This will open up the status bottom model sheet. We cannot swipe because we have not selected multiple images. So here you can see we got the media tabs of one image. Let's say we uploaded. When I click this, it will disappear and it will take some time, some little time while uploading the image to the cloud storage. And we got status like this, you can see, but we also got our status in here, and it will be seen by our current user when I open it up. And we don't want to display our user also in here, so we have to run a where query in here, and we will load all the status where the UID inside the status is not equal to the current user ID. So let's say when I click this or also this will open up. You can see the indicator. When I hold it, it will stop and nothing is disappearing. That is because we have false stat variable in the Flutter story view on hide false, and when I release the tab, it will go and will finish, and you can see the border becomes gray because we have seen the story. And in the cloud file store in the data, we got the status and the status ID, and you can see we have the stories on 0 index. We have the type image and its URL, and in the viewers I got my current UID because I have seen that specific story on the index in that specific status in that document. So that's how the process is going to be. So we have tested it, it's working fine. Now we have to run one more query in here in order to not load our status in here, and you have seen how the scene functionality is working. So it means we don't have to log out and log in with another user to see the stories, but just try to go to this page and try to delete this story or status, and also update the story when we upload image in here when the story already exists in here. So before going forward, let's try one more thing. So we have uploaded the status in here, and when I go to the Firebase Cloud File Store, and here it has the created time, and it's on 18 January 2014. So when I click this, and let's say I do this to 17 and update it, so the condition, the query will become false. And when we go back to the application, we got null check operator used on a null value. Let's check it out. When I click this, here we have put the assertion operator, which means that the stories won't be null, and hence the status, and it's got null. And also this is doing because of the block builder. Let's auto start the application, and let's try to test it again. Go to the status page and there is nothing, but why we come up with the exception? Okay, let's change the time back to the 18. Update. Is it updated? No. Okay, 18 and update, and we got the status for this one, but this requires the stat to be updated because the data is stored of my story in this stat. So that's why it might need how to start the application. And then when I come back in here, you can see we got the status, and when we do remove, so it again requires how to start application because the stat is still get my status loaded and the data upcoming is null from backend. So the condition become false, so we got nothing, and that's why when this my status is used, so we got null check operator used on that null value where data is upcoming from database is null and we are accessing it. So that's why we got the null check operator in here. So in a real case, we won't be updating the data from directly in here, but instead what we will be doing when we upload one more status in here, we will navigate to the home page on index 1. So we will again come to the status and the data will be updated in here, and it's same while deleting it. So that's how the process is going to be, and you have seen the scene status. Now we are gonna go ahead and try to delete the status. So in the my status, we have to make some changes. First, the my status page is going to accept the status entity, and it's going to require it like this. And in the routes, we have to do the change by checking the condition. We will copy these conditions from here. from the single chat page and we'll paste it in here. We will paste this in here. We will do status and passing the arguments. If is status entity, then we will pass the arguments, and that's it. Now while navigating to the my status page, so navigator here to my status, we will do the arguments will be my status. It's status entity. Yes, it is. Now once we have this, we will again how to start the application, or we can just directly make changes in here. When we go again, it's working, and in here we have to modify its body. It's pretty simple for now. When we go in here, when we click this delete, we are currently not calling any function in here. So what we're gonna do in here, for the profile widget, you'll do image URL widget status image URL, and here instead of taking datetime.now and subtract to the duration datetime.now.second, we will do in here with the widget status start created date to date, subtract the duration of datetime.now in second to parse the time. And then for this area, when this JSON detector is tapped, we will call delete status update, and on tap we will do navigator.pop to close the dialog box, and we'll call the delete status on its status ID, and we'll push replacement name, and we'll go to the home page with UID on index 1 to come back to the status page. So after that, we will have to start the application to test this deletion also. And when we go to the status page, here we got the status. We can go in here, we got it 19 minutes, we have uploaded it. And when I click in here and do delete, it's saying delete one status update. When we click this, it will be deleted, and you can see we navigate in here and there is no status update. And in the Cloud File Store database, we don't have one because it's deleted. So we got the status and we have seen the status, we deleted the status, and now it's time to do update status. So the update status will be, for example, let's say I want to upload 2 more images in here, let's say 3 anyways, and add and upload them. And once they're uploaded, I will got them directly in here. 3 were the images. They will be uploading first to the Firebase storage, and once it's completed, it will come in here, and we got it like that. The first image become the image URL of the status, and you can see the borders are divided like that. And here we still got the null check operator on this, but it's still working. Anyways, if it's working, then why we have this exception? Anyways, and when I open up one here, it's actually my status, and when I close it back, you can see one status has been seen. And in the Cloud File Store, for that specific status, I got the viewers my UID, so this status is considered seen, and the others are not because other viewers are still empty. So now we will go ahead first and check the condition in here. The status we will do where the element, or this is also we can say status dot UID, the creator ID is not equal to widget dot UID, and then we will convert it to list. That's it. Now we will have to start the application, and once it auto starts, we go to the status. We want to get the status in here, and that's it for that. Now one last thing to update the status. So for that we have to go to the home page, and because this button exists on the home page, so we have to implement that functionality that we had in the status page also in the home page, which means that the images, selecting of images, this method here, and we will also be required with the stories. So we will go to the home page, and here on top of below this we'll paste it, and we have to import the file picker, And for path, we have to go to the status page again, and we'll import the path like this also. And for the file, we'll import the .io, and we got it like that. Also going to have the story so that we can add the data in here for uploading it to the cloud file store database. And once we have this, we have to also pass the same upload image status method in here, which is again requiring the current user and doing the same job, first uploading the statuses and then get my status future use case. If my status already exists, so it will update, otherwise we'll create new one. And once we have this, we will always call it in here. So in the floating action button, switch floating action button, and here, and this is going to require the current user, and we have to also, let's say, create the user entity current user, and here it required the current user. We don't have one, but I keep passing it like this because I know I'm going to go and we'll wrap this with a block builder, and we'll do get single user, and this is basically the home page. We are getting the single user in here. We will check if, okay, let's import this now, and we'll check if stat is get single, it's actually single user loaded, we will return the body, otherwise we will return constant center child circular progress indicator with color tab color, and put the semicolon in here, and we have to access the final current user equal to stat dot single user. And once we have got this in the init stat, we have to call to the block provider dot of context of the get single user qubit dot get single user with the widget dot uid current user id, and we got the current user also in here. So once we have this, we will how to start the application and open up the console, and everything is okay. Now when you go in here, we already have the status, and when we open up this and thing is happening, let's open up the console. It's saying null check operator again. The selected media is directly called with the selected media null, so we have to carefully to upload status in here, not directly calling it like that. So we will do the same thing, select media, and then when the selected media was not equal to null, show bottom worldsheet and the show multi-image picker, and then on tab we'll call this, and navigator pop, the same thing that we were doing in the status page. Let's start the application again, and we'll go for testing. In the status, we have already status, we got them, and when you click this, it opens up again. Let's say I want to upload this teeth now. I will add this, and I got it like this, and when I upload this, it will take some time, and the data has been updated, but I didn't get the status in here. It's still 3. So let's check it out, the exception if there is any one. It's a lot of images. Here it's saying some error occur while creating the status. We were not creating the status, but we were updating it, right? Because this condition is already false in here. So when it's not empty, then you have to do for creation. Otherwise you have to go for update. So let's check it out in the remote data source implementation, get my status and scene, update only images, some error. Okay, we have to change this. Some error occur while updating status stories, and why the error occurs. This must work, right? So the update requires the stories of stories, and we are correctly passing it in here. What could be the problem? I think we are not doing the conversion in here. You can see we have the list of status image entity, but the stories is supposed to require the raw data, and we are directly passing the updated story which has a tab of list of status image entity. So I think this is the reason we got the exception, and yes, I'm sure that can be a reason because there is a type mismatch. So now we have to convert somehow the list of status image entity to the list of map string dynamic to pass it in here to make it work. So to fix this, let's align this with this method. For example, because here we were doing the list of map string dynamic, so let's also do one same thing in here. Before update stories, we're gonna do first access to the stories of list of map string dynamic, and once we got the stories in here, now we have to comment this method out, and then now we have to call the add all methods, and in the add all we have to add the stories, and also we have to convert these stories to some raw format so that we can store it in the cloud file store database, and this will be acceptable for this update method. So what we are going to do in here, we will do stories.addAll the status.stories. We will map each story, and when you got its value, it won't be null, so we'll do this. And now we got the E from the status entity, so we will do status image entity dot to JSON. We cannot call the method like this, so we can make a static method in here to JSON static. This is going to accept the status image entity, will be status image entity, and the status image entity URL will be the URL, viewers will be the viewers, and the type will be the type, and it is going to be a static method so that we can call it directly in here to JSON static, and the E will be passed in here for the conversion, and that's it. Now the stories will be passed in here and also in here, and this time the URL won't be accessed like this, but for the map we will do URL like that. So once the conversion has been completed, I think this was a problem. Now let's start the application to test it again. So let's go to the status, and let's say we want to upload one more image. Let's say the flowers, and add and upload, and open up the console, and we will wait for it. And you can see the status has been updated, and yes, that's what we wanted. In the cloud file store we got the 3 index also on that index. When we open up, we have the 4 stories. You can see the 1, 2, 3, and the last one 4. So that's how the status is updating. But also to show you in the preview of videos, so in that device I don't have the videos, so I'm gonna close this device and run the application on the emulator to also show you that. So when the application runs an emulator, now this time we go to the status page, and since here we are logging with other user account, so you can see we got the other user status in here, and let's open it up. I got a range error. That is because here, let's check which area is raising that error, the Flutter story view. So let's go to the status page in here, and where we are opening the bottom sheet for the other users in the list view builder. Here we are calling either show or upload sheet, and here we are doing always passing the my stories, so it won't be like that. For the other users we need to do the conversion in the list view builder. for the stories that are loaded in the list view. So here for the stories in the list view builder, we will add a local variable of list story item, and in here we will do loop through the story items coming from the status start stories inside the each status while building in the list view builder, and add them in these stories this time, and will be story item, the URL, the viewers, and the from string the story item type. And then this time we don't have to do the either show up bottom sheet, but in here it will always open the show status image bottom model sheet, and the stories will be the stories passed in here. Now how to start the application, and this time it won't give us this range error. So once the application how to starts, we'll go back to the status page, and then when we click this it will open up, and now it's saying null check operator used on null value. So it's simply saying when you click this the status was null, so we have to pass the status also. For the time it requires, its status will be the status that we have on the index. Yes, like that. It was nullable, so I didn't know if it's required or not. Okay, let's how to start the application once again. Anyways, so when the application restarts, close the console, go to the status page. This time when you open this, it will show up like this. We can hold it like this and it can go to the other story. We can go back to the story, other stories like that, and when it completes, all the stories has been seen. And with that, the task is also completed of logging in with other user accounts. So we just open up another emulator and just try this out. So now when we upload the status in here, let's say we want to upload this video also with the image. So when you select this and add to, so we got the image in here. When you swipe it like this, we got the video. We can play this video and we can pause this video. When you upload this, it will take some time, and once it's uploaded, we got our status in here. When we click this, open this up, we can pause it and we can go to the video, and it's loading the video. And when it loads the video, we got the status in here. It's playing the videos too. And when it completes, it will close this. So that was it for the status. We can delete the status, we can update the status, we can see the status, and we have written all of the code for this in the status page and my status page. And we have done some modification. There were one mistake in the remote source implementation that we have to fix, and now it's fixed. We can update, we can delete, we can see, and we can do whatever is the functionality of the status in the WhatsApp clone. So that's it for this video. If you found this video helpful, thumbs up, like, and subscribe for daily updates. Also drop down all of your confusions in the comment section or directly DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn. That's it. See you in the next one.